Hello everyone, and welcome to my home studio here in Kissimmee, Florida. Thanks so much for watching this video. Today, I'm going to explain the process of portrait painting the way I do it. Okay, so you might have wondered what colors I use on my palette. Well, I use Mars Black, I use a burnt sienna, I use a burnt umber, uh, Venetian red, alizarin red. I use medium yellow, a light yellow, and lastly I use titanium white. Now, many artists they have different palettes for their colors. These are the colors that I use. These are the colors that works best for me for any type of pigment. So let me get started by explaining to you the process of portrait painting, the way I do it. I start out with a very fine Italian linen. Now, the linen that I purchase, most of the time it's already primed, but I add 2 coats of gesso to give it a more of a smooth surface. Then from there, once that second coat is dry, I do 2 preliminary drawings. And if you've known me from the past, I enjoy working from live, actually drawing the person or painting the person from a live setting. But due to the pandemic, I'm limited to only working from photograph. So I either take the photograph myself or the client provide the photograph. So the process is, once that second coat of the gesso is dried on the canvas, I do a preliminary drawing, a couple of preliminary drawings. Then I transfer the drawing that I think is suited best onto the canvas. Once it's transferred on the canvas, I use what you call a fixative to seal the drawing. That's very important. Once that drawing is sealed on the canvas, the second stage is called a wash, where I use either turpentine or paint thinner, and I use the burnt sienna, which is a darker tone for us to paint, that's thinned down. Sometimes I use a brush like this. This is a flat-headed brush. And sometimes I use the old Home Depot Lowe's type brush that you use for general painting to cover large areas in the paint. But once I use the wash and I cover the whole complete canvas. Once that's done, any excess I wipe off with either paper towel or a soft cloth. Normally I use a cloth to wash it off. And it dries pretty rapidly. Once that's done, I'm ready to start the portrait. A lot of the artists prefer to start with the eyes first. I prefer to start working in the background. Once I start working in the background, then of course I work on the face. This stage of the painting is called the blockout stage. It's where I take a flat brush like this and I'll cover the image. On the blockout stage, once that's dry, normally it only take say like maybe a couple hours for that block out stage dries. Once it dries enough for me to actually start the painting, then I go ahead and not put in any fine detail because we're not at that stage yet. But I go ahead and I cover, so like this is a multi-image type of portrait. I work the image, and I'm starting from the left, going to the right. And during this stage, I start to put in just a little bit of detail, not much detail, just enough that I can see and be able to figure out how I'm going to make the painting start to have a resemblance of the image that I'm working from. So once that stage is completed, then gradually you start seeing more detail added to the painting. So in this case, on this particular painting here, it's very crucial that each image that I work each image right about the same time. So we're at the stage now, at the final stage of this painting. During the oil portrait, there are several layers of paint that's added. Unlike acrylic paint, acrylic dries just in a few minutes. Oil paint is a longer process. Normally on a portrait like this, it can take up to at least a month to complete. So I have to allow each layer to almost dry. To slow down the drying process, I use a refined olive oil. This will slow down the process. Now, the closer I get to the finished product, when I start to put in fine detail, I use a different medium. In this case, I use a medium that's called liquid. Liquid actually speeds up the drying process of the paint. This is going to allow me to put in the kind of detail that's very important for the finished product. So I'm at the stage now that I'm almost ready to sign my name, and I'm just going to do just a little bit of touch up on the hair here. I like the idea of having the luxury of working from home. A lot different when I had the outside studio in a public environment. Here at my home, I have two studios. I have a studio inside my house, and I also have, just here recently, a studio that's outside the house on my porch. When I'm doing an oil painting, it's very important that I have the proper ventilation because of the chemicals that I'm using. And so I make sure that I'm in a well-ventilated area. So working on my back porch, it suits me well to have this outside studio. So I'm just gonna go ahead and continue to add some detail. If you notice, most of my portraits, they're photorealism. And what I mean by photorealism is that once the painting is completed, it's hard to distinguish it from a painting and a photograph. Of course, this is my favorite part. Very soon I'm going to be putting together a tutorial type of painting video. That way you can see the process from the beginning to the end. If you hear some background noise, it's because some of my studio is out on my porch, and so from time to time you might hear some background noise. I really enjoy working from music, but for the purpose of this video, it's important that not to have music in the background. Okay, here comes the part that I really enjoy, and that's signing the portrait. Once I sign the portrait, I allow my signature to dry maybe for a couple of days, and that's when after it dries a couple of days, I check for dryness. Then I put on the first coat of varnish. That's very important for us oil portrait, because for us an oil portrait, it's not covered with glass. And so it's important that the painting to have some type of protection to protect it from dust or any other type of debris. The other thing that I want to mention, for those that might have oil portraits or landscape paintings, it's very important that you keep away from allowing anyone to touch it for the fingerprints, because the oil from your fingers have acid and it could damage the painting. So never ever touch the painting with your fingers. For those that might have visited a museum, that's why you might see a sign saying, please do not touch, because it could, the acid from your fingers could damage the painting. Of course, all paintings can last a lifetime. The type of painting that I'm using, of course, is the same type of paint that you might see in a museum. These paintings are designed to last for hundreds and hundreds of years. So here we go. I'm putting my signature on here. Of course, the artist's signature is what really adds value to the painting. The signature authenticates that it is an original. And it's hand signed by the artist. I made a little blunder here. Once an artist establishes a certain way he signs his work, then that signature is maintained throughout any painting that an artist does. And this painting is no different here. So thought I would mention that. For the first time in months, I was able to visit a gallery today. And I was so excited about selecting the frame for this painting. Of course, all my original art is custom framed. You know what's important now about placing the actual date, the year, being that now we're in 2021, I've seen an article that says that it's best now to, instead of putting like 21, to actually put 2021. And you know, it really makes sense. So I'm going to put 2021. And lastly, I'm going to add the copyright sign. And that's it, folks. Well, once again, I want to thank you for watching this video. Of course, if you like this video on YouTube, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And thank you so much. I'll see you on the next round.